Hi everyone, it's Lisa and welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio and the November Studio stamps in the mail. Thank you so much for making your purchase. Inside your priority mail envelope, you should have your Snowflake Sentiments stamp set, your Winter Wonder, that's the Snowflake embossing folder, and of course the foil snowflakes. Inside there you're also going to find the pre-cut supplies for all 8 cards. Since you'll be making 2 of everything, you'll find the supplies doubled up inside an envelope with another envelope inside. There's also a small Ziploc bag that's going to contain your accessories for your cards, and your washi tape has been stuck to the outside, making it easy for you to peel off and reuse. You're going to need some basic stamping supplies. The C block will work for all the images we're going to use today. You're also going to need your basic gray archival ink, and this is going to be for the project with the vellum. And this is the Smoky Slate ink pad, glue dots, dimensionals, adhesive. I like to use a paper piercing tool to help me pick up my embellishments. I'm also a big fan of my bone folder to help me crease my cards. These 2 items are optional. If you don't have them, that's fine. And of course, you're going to need your Big Shot with your multi-purpose platform so that we can emboss the snowflake. I think we're ready. Let's get started. As I mentioned in the beginning, you're going to find that you have 2 of everything tucked inside the envelope. So I'm going to pull out just one. I'm going to make 1 card right along with you. If you'd like to get them both done, you can work in an assembly line fashion using all the supplies to make both cards at the same time. You're going to find the silver foil was backwards in the envelope. I do that to try to protect that finish while it's mailing. So we've got our pieces here. The first thing we're going to start with is the vellum. I know it's probably difficult to see this opaque finish on the video. I mounted the words Season's Greetings, and this is where you're going to need that basic gray archival ink. Aside from heat embossing, this is the only ink that will actually dry on the vellum. So we're going to actually use that with our Season's Greetings, and I'm going to ink that up. This is a different type of feel to this ink pad versus the classic pads. This one actually has a felt base, so it sounds a little bit harder. I want to make sure I've got good coverage on it, and I always check to make sure I don't have ink around my edges. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to line this up. I'm pressing in the center of the vellum, lots of firm, even pressure, and I'm careful not to rock the stamp, just in case I did get ink on those edges. I want to make sure I get a good impression. And then a lift. I'm going to set that aside to dry. That's going to need a few minutes. I've got my Stamp and Scrub right off camera here, so I'm always in the habit of cleaning my stamps right away to get them out of the way. And then when I'm done with my ink pad, I'm in a big habit of closing it because it seems like everything I have ends up in ink if I don't close it. All right, the base of our card is really very simple. You're just going to attach these 2 panels together. So I'm going to go ahead and put adhesive on my back side. And since it's such a short piece, I was a little bit more generous here. Typically, I just use the 4 corners, and then I'm going to center that on my foil so that we have a real nice border all the way around. Once you have this mounted, you're actually going to need to put the vellum around here. You're going to want to make sure that your vellum is completely dry. So there's 2 things that you can do. You can use your heat tool if you have one to speed up the drying process. If you don't, you're going to need to let this sit. The last thing you want to do is let this smear. So here's a little cheat method for you if you're not sure. Turn it upside down on your work surface and very carefully blot it, and then pick it up without smearing it to see if it's dry. If it leaves residue ink here, then you know it's not quite finished yet, so it's going to need to sit and rest. So if you need to do that, go ahead and stop the video and let it dry and then come back to me. All right, it looks like my vellum is good and dry, so I'm ready to mount this. I still will provide a little caution to you not to manhandle this too much. Even the oils and the sweat from your skin, while that ink is still permeating into the vellum, it can smear, so just be careful. So this is going to get centered in the middle of the panel, and then all I did was I created a crease along the edges, just like this. And if you have a little slack in it, it's okay. So I'm going to flip that over. Look, I've got a boo-boo. Confession, before I started the video with you guys, I started to practice this, and I was like, I'm not wasting that foil. How many of you done that, taken the adhesive off, right? Okay, so I did the same thing. I'm going to add a little adhesive to the outside edges of my vellum, pulling it tautly to secure it here in the back. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And same here. All right, and then I'm going to flip it over. Okay, that's really pretty. All right, the next step is to adhere it to the base of the card. You have a choice of putting this up on dimensionals, but I found that troublesome with the washi tape. So if you're not a washi tape lover and you don't want to use it, that's fine. You can use dimensionals, but I'm going to lay mine flat so I can use the washi tape on my card. So I'm going to flip this over, and because I was able to get that adhesive off, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but I had a quick tip video about using a regular household pink eraser. Let me pull it out and show you. You get these for the kids for school. It's made by Pink Pearl. I mean, you can find this anywhere. I mean, literally anywhere, and it's like $1. And it actually will remove the adhesive. Yep, little scrub and it comes right off. It's a great tip so that you don't have to ruin and throw away paper when you've made a mistake, like I did. All right, so I'm going to go right in the middle with this. I'm looking just to try to get an equal amount of space at the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to flip it over and rub from the back because I want to make sure I don't smear my vellum just in case it hasn't set inside there really well yet. Okay, and then on the front of your Ziploc bag, you're going to have more than likely 2 different types of washi tape because it comes assorted. I did check to make sure they all look beautiful. And if you haven't used washi tape, I'm going to encourage you to give this stuff a try. It really adds quite a bit to your projects. So I'm going to overlap the edges here a little bit. So I've got a little at the top. And I'm going to take another one off here. And I'm going to do another one here at the bottom. And I'm just going to press my washi tape in place. Look how simple, but isn't that stunning? All right, our first card is finished. Let's move on to the next one. Our second card is going to use the smaller of the snowflakes in your stamp set. So here's the set here. You're going to see this one's a little bit more open, and then this one is smaller and more solid. And this is the one we're using for this card. Your supplies are in the envelope. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull out one of everything because I'm going to stamp right along with you, but I'm just going to make one. So I'm going to need 2 for the border for each card, my silver circle, and inside there should be a designer paper circle and then a smaller white circle. Again, if you want to make both, go ahead and take everything out and work in an assembly line fashion. Otherwise, you can save this for another time. I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to start by folding my card base in half. And I know I told you this in the beginning, I'm a big fan of my bone folder. So let me grab that, give me that nice crisp edge. And we are now going to use the embossing folder to emboss the front of this card. Let me go grab the Big Shot. All right, I've got my Big Shot. I'm going to put a clear mat here on the bottom to protect that. And then I've got my card base and my embossing folder. The words Stampin' Up! And Sizzix indicate the top of the embossing folder. So this is going to be at the front of your card. And I'm going to slip this over just like it's a slip cover. And my advice to you about this embossing folder is to shimmy it until it looks centered. So I'm maneuvering this a little bit towards the top and the bottom. So I want about the equal amount of space here and here from the snowflake. I know it's difficult to see because it's clear. And then that other piece is going to get wrapped to the back. You're going to lay that on your platform and then another clear mat over the top. And then we're going to crank this through. My advice to you about this is crank slowly. Sometimes I have found that this embossing folder embosses so deep that if you go too quickly, you can kind of get a wrinkle in your paper. All right. So there we go. We've got a beautiful snowflake. Inside your envelope, you're going to have 2 pieces of copper foil, and we're going to put adhesive on these. Now, you don't have to have one of these, but I'm a huge fan of it. This is the silicone craft sheet, and the reason I like it is it keeps sticky off my work surface when I'm working with small pieces that I need to put adhesive or glue on. So I'm going to turn that upside down on there, and then I'm with my snail adhesive. I am going to add adhesive to the back. And this way, if I run off the sides a little bit, I don't have to worry about making my surface all sticky here, and then, of course, ruining my cards. And then I'm going to lay this right at the bottom of the base. I'm just doing my very best to make it straight, working all the way across. All right, and then I'm going to bring in the next piece, and I'm going to do the exact same thing, adding adhesive down the back. You're going to see that I do strips. I find that that works better for me. I find that if I do a whole line of adhesive, sometimes when I put it on the card, it kind of buckles. All right, and this one's going to go at the top. But you know what? I'm going to turn it this way because I have better luck of getting it straight if I can actually see it from the bottom than seeing it from the top. So again, doing my very best to get it straight across the top, from end to end, and then I'm going to press. All right, so now we've got the base of our card. It's really pretty, isn't it? The other pieces are really quite simple. We've got the silver circle, and then we've got the designer paper circle. This is the Year of Cheer specialty paper. This stuff is beautiful. And then we also have a white circle here. So I'm going to grab my Smoky Slate ink pad, open that up, and I've got my Snowflake, and then I'm going to ink that up. And just like we did in the first card, I always like to ink, and I like to check to make sure I don't have it around my edges, and I looked good. And then I'm going to stamp this on that circle. Lots of firm, even pressure, and then a lift, and there we go. We've got our snowflake. If you missed, don't worry, flip it over and you get a second try. So it's relatively easy. The great thing about putting the stickers on your stamps, if you do like me, is that you're going to know where the placement is. All right, so I'm going to close that up. And inside that Ziploc bag, you're going to want to grab one of the strands, or both if you're doing both cards, of the mini silver sequin trim. This stuff is so pretty, isn't it? All right, and I'm going to give you some tips about how to mount this on here. We're actually going to place the silver circle and the designer paper circle first. And I did use dimensionals, so let me grab those. I've got my dimensionals here. Let's work with the silver one first. I'm going to put dimensionals at the top and the bottom. Take off that paper backing, and then I'm going to mount that here on my card over, a little bit of the snowflake on the right hand side. And then I've got my designer series paper. For this one, I want to make sure I'm only using one dimensional, and I'm going to show you why. Decide what you want to show. There's no right or wrong, just decide. And you want the image lined up the way you want it, because I want the dimensional at the bottom. We're going to put adhesive right here because there's going to be an elevation difference. I'm going to put a little bit of tape here at the top, and then I'm going to line this to overlap. And how much you leave showing of the silver is just a matter of preference. So my dimensional is here at the bottom, and now this is adhered at the top. And see, I'm going to show you. Do you see how there's an elevation here? So if you had put a dimensional here, this is going to be uneven. So I put a little tape there and a dimensional here. I'm going to get my snowflake ready by loading it up with dimensionals, because this is what's going to hold those sequins in place. So I'm going to put some here, and some here, and some in the middle. Yep, lots of them, because you don't want it to slide out. Trust me, I've made this before, and I've had that happen, and that's quite embarrassing when you go to give it to someone and then all the sequins slid out. So I'm going to take off that paper backing as well. I'm just getting this ready. All right, we're not going to adhere it just yet. I'm going to push that all off to the side. I'm going to lay that here. So here we've got our sequins. You're going to notice that there's a right and a wrong way. The right way, the sequins are laying flat. And, quote, the wrong way is where you can find the seam where they were actually all stitched together. I do my best to kind of make sure it's going the right way. But you know what? Just like ribbon, it always has a mind of its own. So I'm going to lay it down across my card, and I'm going to make a loop at this one end, and then I'm going to come back over on this end. And I'm going to line it up in the area that I'm going to want to put my snowflake. So I'm going to take my snowflake in my hand, and I'm not going to adhere it. We are going to do what I call a quick hover, just to make sure we're going to have it where we want it. So I've got my little ends showing here. That looks good. All right, but I'm going to tell you right now, I can see what's going to happen based on where I want to put mine. One of my dimensionals is going to be kind of shallow. Do you see it right here? It's going to bounce, and that's going to be this dimensional here. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to double this guy up. I'm going to make him a little taller so that I'm certain that the elevation on this card is going to be correct. All right, so let me just squish all that over, and then I'm going to move this up just a hair, and then I'm going to press. All right, I think that worked out really well. All right, so let me show you from the side. I have two dimensionals stacked here. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to try to pull that a little bit. And that's because this end was going to be sinking or kind of shallow compared to this end, which is now have been elevated. So now we've got all of our sequins in place, and you can kind of play with that to get it to look the way you want. But so pretty and so whimsical. Last thing, of course, is the bling, because I'm a big fan of that. So inside your Ziploc bag, you should have some rhinestones, and this is where I'm going to use my paper piercing tool. There's a glue dot already on the back, so all you have to do is take it off, and then that's going to go right smack dab in the center of that snowflake. That'll bring that whole sequin and foil paper together really pretty. Isn't that gorgeous and so stunning? And that's it for the second card. Let's move on to the next one. Here's our third card. I've gone ahead and mounted the words "Wrapped in Warmth of Christmas." And then here is our packet. And again, I'm going to make one alongside of you. And I'm taking out one of everything that's in here. Again, the foil is backwards. I do that to try to protect it. And let's start by folding the base of the card in half. This is Whisper White. The great thing about the PDF tutorial is you've got all the cutting dimensions to mimic these layouts, as well as all the supplies. So if there's something you've fallen in love with, I've made it really easy for you to reorder in my online store. This is going to be layered over the top. And once again, we are going to use the Winter Wonder embossing folder. So let me get my Big Shot. Just like last time, Big Shot basic platform, and then your clear mat here on the bottom. I've got that single piece of paper now, so we can actually manipulate this a whole lot easier. When I put my paper in the embossing folder, I like to leave it right up against the front. That allows me to manipulate it and be able to see how it's going to work. I'm going to move this all the way to the top. I don't want to lose my snowflake, but I want to get it up near the top of this piece of paper. So I'm looking and I'm like, yep, I've got my snowflake within the boundaries. I've got my snowflake still on the paper. I'm going to close that up. I'm going to lay it on my platform and I'll put the other clear mat over the top and we're going to crank this through. Again, don't crank too quickly. And now we have that pretty snowflake. This folder is absolutely beautiful, isn't it? Inside the envelope, you'll find that beautiful designer paper, and that's going to get mounted here at the bottom. So I'm going to flip that over, and I'm going to put adhesive in my four corners. I'm being a tad more generous this time because I want to make sure that the area that's going to go across the top here is going to be well secured because of the embossing. So I've got my panel here. And then I'm just going to lay that cardstock across the bottom. Looking to see as close as I can from side to side. And then I'm going to rub from the back. I'm going to tell you I do my very, very best to be perfect with the dimensions. But every once in a while my hair too long. And if that's the case, take your scissors and use the edge of your cardstock as a guide just to give that a small haircut. So I'm just going to rub from the back. All right, the next step is going to be the snowflake and the ribbon. So inside your snowflakes, go ahead and open those up. You have a choice of gold or silver, so take whatever you'd like. I'm going to grab a silver one, I think. So let me grab this one. I actually want to show you how to cut it in half. I know I already have one, but I want to show you. All right, so I'm going to take my scissors. I like my long tip scissors. I have those in my stamp room. And I like to work on the long tip of the snowflake. Let me move this so you can see a little bit better. So I've got a tip here and a tip here, and you're going to see there's kind of a line that goes up the middle. So we're just going to cut that in half and all the way across. These are so pretty. I'm going to lay one half to the side, and then I'll use that for my other card or a different color. And then my snowflake is actually going to go here across the border. And again, I love my silicone craft sheet for this. We're not going to need adhesive everywhere, pretty much just in the center, because we don't want it to peek through those little openings, because that would make the front of our card sticky. So I'm going to start right here, and I'm just going to put a little adhesive in the middle and a little bit just underneath it. So I'm staying right within this circumference of the snowflake. Move that. Bring the card back in here for you. And then I'm going to lay this right in the center. So I'm just kind of looking here and here to see if I've got about the same amount of space. All right. And then I'm going to flip that over and I'm going to rub from the back. Yep, I want to make sure it's not sticky. Okay, that's great. Perfect. Now we've got our ribbon. And that is going to go across here. Now, depending on whether you want it to cover up some of this or go above it is completely up to you. Now, you have two options. You can either use adhesive or you can use glue dots. I find glue dots a lot easier. So I'm going to use a glue dot here. I'm going to put one on this end, and I'm going to put one on this end. By pressing your actual item onto the glue dot and lifting, it's so much easier than picking them off with your fingers. So I'm going to lay this here. Just make sure I've kind of got it lined up. I'm going to go across this end, and then I'm going to pull taut and then wrap the other one to the back. All right. Pretty, huh? Really pretty. So you can see my raw ends are here. Don't waste your ribbon. This wastes 4 or 5 inches on every single card if you wrap it around. And I'll tell you what, if you make a lot of cards like I do, that's a lot of ribbon over time. So there we go. We've got that base. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to adhere this to the base of the card using dimensionals. So I'm going to go ahead and grab those. And I'm going to be a bit more generous because this is a large panel. So I'm going to work definitely the 4 corners. And then I'm also going to work right over that ribbon here and here. And then I do top, middle, and bottom. Because I'm layering this and I know it's going to get mailed, and when it goes through the postage machine, I want to make sure that it doesn't come out sagging at the other end. So I'm going to take off those paper backing now. If you're having trouble getting that paper backing off like I am, take your fingernail, press in the center of the dimensional. That helps to lift the outside edges of the paper. Just a quick little tip for you, and I find that very helpful because I have fairly short fingernails. I keep them really short because they're always full of ink, so I just keep them short. All right, so there we go. We've got our card, and now this is going to go in the center of that card. So just kind of eye yourself a border all the way around, and then lightly give a little tap. Those dimensionals are good and strong, so isn't that pretty? Now all we have to do is do our words. We've got that white square that's inside your envelope, and I'm using the smoky slate ink. And those are the words, wrapped in the warmth of Christmas. So I'm going to tap and ink those up. I'm checking. And that's going to go right here in the middle. Just firm, even pressure. And then a lift. Cleaning my stamp right off camera. Closing that up because you know I don't want an accident to happen. And then I'm going to flip this over. And I'm going to put adhesive on the back. And I'm going to put that centered right here on my foil. Got myself a nice little border going all the way around. And then I'm going to rub from the back to make sure it's good and stuck. And then, you guessed it, more dimensionals. But this time, I'm not going to want to lay them completely just here and here. So make sure that you're generous again. We've got some elevation going on this card as well. I like dimension to my cards, and I'm hoping that's one reason why you've purchased your studio stamps in the mail, is that you find my designs quite different. So I'm going to go ahead and put one more in the center. So I'm going to take off those backings again. I find these little pieces of dimensional paper everywhere in my house. I mean, crazy everywhere. I think the craziest place was in the bushes by the front porch and in the dishwasher. That's a true story, in the dishwasher. So then I'm just going to kind of layer this here. I'm going to let some of that snowflake show. So you can manipulate it as high or as low as you'd like. Isn't that stunning? It's so pretty. Okay, that's number 3. Let's move on to our last card. Here's our last packet, and this one's kind of thick because I have already pre-scored this triple panel card for you. So I'm going to take out those pieces. And your designer paper might be slightly different than mine, but I made sure that they all look pretty. So you can see mine are different here. And just for the sake of the video, I want to make sure that I use a different paper than what's in the PDF tutorial so you can see. So I'm going to tuck the snowflake one back in. And then there's other pieces in here. I want to make sure I grab those. I've got the gold, and then there's a long strip that has a fold in it as well. All right, so I'm going to set those aside. Let's work with the actual card base first. Okay, so the triple flaps have already been scored for you, but you're going to want to go over them and just make sure you've got a really nice crisp crease on this. Whenever you've got lots of folds, you want to make sure that your card is going to lay very nicely. So there we go, that looks better. We're going to start by just putting all the designer series panels on. So you can see that I've chose this other pattern versus the one that I originally made. Let me just show you, which is here, which is the snowflake. This designer paper is stunning and they all coordinate beautifully, but I wanted to show you how nice this works. Now there's other pieces inside this stamp set. So this little tiny snowflake is actually on a border, so I want to give you an idea. If you were to mount this and just ink up one of the snowflakes, just kind of hanging it off your ink pad, you can fit those inside here. Isn't that fun? Or you can just leave it blank. The other thing is you can add more embellishments to the card. So it's another great place if you have extra rhinestones or sequins that you want to put on. Those are a great place for those as well. So I'm going to flip that over and I'm going to put, whoop, I told you they come up everywhere, those little dimensional pieces. I'm going to put adhesive in the back. And then I'm going to go top and bottom because this card is going to be kind of a moving card. I am actually going to turn this vertically, so I have better luck at trying to get a nice little border here. So I'm kind of hovering over the top and I'm looking. Yep, it looks like I've got a border all the way around, and then I've mounted that. This top flap, this 1-inch area, should come down. And that is where the gold is going to go. That gold piece is going to go here. So I'm going to flip that over. And the exact same thing. You know what? Let me grab my silicone mat. This is why I like it. I want to make sure that if I go off on the paper, it's not going to make that area sticky. I'll set that to the side. And again, I'm going to go vertical because I have better luck that way. This way I can kind of gauge where it's going to end up and have that nice little border. And I'm looking to do my best to try to get these papers aligned on the side. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I just try hard to get them aligned. Okay, so we've got those. The last one is your bottom panel. That's going to go here. So I'm going to add adhesive here as well. So this time I'm going to do my 4 corners. I'm not going to need too much there because that's kind of like the base of the card. All right, and then that is going to go here on the inside. Let me open that up. And again, looking for a border of cardstock all the way around. All right, and then I'll rub that. Don't forget, January 2nd is the last day for the holiday catalog, and this is going to be gone, guaranteed. All right, next step is going to be the inside of the card. You can choose any greeting you want. That's the best part of the stamp set. Stamp sets with words and images are my absolute favorites, and this is definitely a set that's going to be timeless. So I'm taking this one, Merry Christmas from our family to yours. I'm going to mount that on my block, and we're going to change up this block in a minute to do that snowflake. I'm going to use my Smoky Slate ink pad. If you want to use your basic gray for this on the inside, you sure can. So I'm going to ink that up. And once again, I like to check and make sure, yep, it looks pretty good. I'm going to center that here. And I'm looking to try to get it straight. Here we go, firm, even pressure. And then a lift. All right, so I've got my Merry Christmas. That looks really lovely. Let me clean that. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to split that off to the side. I'm going to take that off my block. I'll stick that one back in the stamp case, and I have now already taken out ahead of time that snowflake. This is the more open filigree one, and that's what we're going to use to put on what's called the belly band, which is that wrap that goes around the card. So I'm going to set that one off to the side. Down inside here, I know I have them, I just forgot to take them out, circles. So we've got a big and a small, and you're going to actually have 2 because you're going to do 2 cards. One is going to go on the front of the snowflake and one is going to go on the back of the snowflake. And just because my original sample actually did a silver one, I thought, oh, I'll do a gold one for this video. So I'm going to pull out a gold one for this. And again, mix and match. The gold and silver, they all go beautifully together because of the metallics. The larger circle here is the one we're going to stamp the snowflake on. So let me grab that. I'm going to ink up my snowflake, and this is in the Smoky Slate. I'm looking, yep, it looks pretty good. I'm going to put that down on my circle. Lots of firm, even pressure and a lift. Okay, that looks good. Again, just like before, if you need to, flip it over and stamp it again. I'm cleaning off my stamp, and I'm going to close up my ink pad. All right, I'm going to set that off to the side. We're going to need to put something on the back of here so that we can attach it to this strip. So that's why I included this. So all I want you to do is I want you to put a little bit of adhesive in the center to hold the snowflake to it. So I've got my silicone mat, and I'm going to put adhesive here and here right down the center. And then I'm going to center my snowflake on there. So that's going to act as a base to this image. And then I'm going to add dimensionals with this piece. So let me grab my dimensionals, and I'm going to take a couple of those. I'm going to put those on the back. I always work on opposite sides so that it's balanced. Take off that paper backing. And this is going to go in the center of my snowflake. Okay, let me move that. This is the belly band, which is just not finished. I scored it so that I could get it in the envelope without it, coming in a bunch of different pieces. So let me just show you how this is going to go. So our card now is finished. It goes like this. This is going to go around the card. So with the crease at the top, I want you to slide it on like so. You're going to see that this end here is going to come up, and you're going to fold it. Don't make it too tight, because the intention is for the person to be able to slide this off and on so that they can, reveal the card. So all I did was crease it. There's nothing fancy here. But before I get too far, I want to create a small banner tip here on the bottom. So I'm going to take that off, and with my paper snips, I forgot to tell you you're going to need these, but I'm sure you've got a pair nearby. Make a small slit right here in the center. And then I want you to come from the outside edge to the top of that slit on both sides. By making the slit first, it's going to give you a really, really nice tip for your banner. Let me just move those off to the side. All right, and I'm just going to show you how this goes. So that, again, that crease at the top, your banner tip is here. This folds up, and this is going to come down. These two have to connect. They have to intersect. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little adhesive right here. So let me grab my silicone mat one more time because it's a small area. And I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive. I'm saying about 1 inch on each side. And I'm actually going to adhere it while it's on the card because I find I have better success that way. Again, don't make it too tight. And I'm lining up those pieces, trying to get them as straight as I possibly can so the top and the bottom are aligned. And then I'm going to press. Okay, so you should be able to move this up and down fairly easily. Okay. You don't want it loose where it's going to fall off, but you definitely want to be able to manipulate it. And then this is going to go on here. Now you can use adhesive to do that, or you can use dimensionals. I'll tell you what, I had better luck with dimensionals. So I'm going to take dimensionals off, and I'm going to lay them exactly where I'm going to want this. Boy, this is pretty, isn't it? So I'm going to put it on the back here and here on that little panel that we put to hold our snowflake. And now what you want to do is you want to make sure that you get these right on top of here. You don't want it to land on your card. So I'm going to mount it like so. And before I go crazy pushing, I'm going to look and I'm like, yep, it's on there. The other thing to do is to pull it off and then attach them. Isn't that pretty? And then I give this a little bit of a flick so it's got a little bit of a interest going back on there, and then this will slide back on your card. Now the very first time you do this, don't be afraid if you got to bend that card. Just bow it slightly to get that on. The more you take it on and off, the easier that it is. Isn't that beautiful? Such a gorgeous stamp set and such pretty simple cards. Okay, if you've made all the cards with me today, you'll have 2 of our triple panel. We're going to have 2 of the season's greetings, 2 of the warmth of Christmas, and 2 of the beautiful snowflake and sequins cards. I am so glad you joined me this month for Studio Stamps in the Mail, everyone. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you join me in December for a special edition. I know you're going to be busy, so I've got great projects for you that you can whip out super quick. Have a great day, everyone.